When it comes to video game stories, a definitive ending can be satisfying. However, sometimes developers provide options for multiple scenarios for the finale. In open-world games where freedom and choice are pivotal to the experience, having multiple endings enhances the overall experience and encourages multiple playthroughs to unlock them all. From iconic RPGs that span fantasy and sci-fi realms to superhero adventures, having different endings means that players' choices do matter, even if the impact is minimal. These endings can test a player's morality or simply offer an alternate option for those seeking something different, making the game feel more personal and engaging. Like its two predecessors, Infamous Second Son is similar to Spider-Man Web of Shadows due to being a darker superhero story where the player can explore an open-world city and swap between powers like a superhero. There is even a karma system, which can result in the people of Seattle viewing the main character, Delsin, as either a hero or a villain. Delsin gains various powers during his journey in Infamous Second Son, with each power having different tiers based on good and evil moralities. The game features two possible endings for Delsin, one good and one bad. The ending he receives depends on whether his karma leans more towards good or evil by the conclusion of the story. The sequel to 2010's Nier mixes RPG aspects with hack-and-slash gameplay to create an even more expansive experience for gamers, resulting in Nier Automata. Gamers get the chance to play as robotic protagonists in a post-apocalyptic world that features 26 different endings, adding to replayability. Technically, there are 5 main endings, but there are multiple other endings that can be found by experimenting with certain decisions, with each one labeled after different letters of the alphabet. Multiple endings are mostly for laughs, but they make exploring the smaller open world more than worth the time, especially in second or third playthroughs. As it was developed by the same team behind the Mass Effect games, it is not surprising that choices have consequences in Dragon Age Inquisition, which is the only game in the series to embrace an open-world format. The result is an intriguing fantasy world filled with elves, demons, the undead, and, as the title suggests, dragon. With a fully customizable main protagonist, Dragon Age Inquisition requires the player to pay attention to their choices that can alter relationships and outcomes in both small and significant ways. The ending can have over 40 different major variations, combined with over 100 smaller variations, depending on choices throughout the game and the 2 previous ones. Most are familiar with the idea that Spider-Man's great power comes with great responsibility, which results in him being a good-hearted hero in nearly every story-based video game and movie. Spider-Man Web of Shadows allows the player to ignore that whole chestnut by providing heroic and villainous choices throughout the story. With the ability to swap between the heroic red and the darker symbiote versions of Spider-Man, players can create chaos or be as altruistic as possible, with each suit having its own pros and cons. The same can be said of the various story choices, which can result in 4 possible endings for Peter Parker, with 2 good and 2 bad endings. As Geralt of Rivia, most of the game is spent dealing with other people's stories, with multiple large storylines and respective characters that change depending on the player's choices. This, combined with the endless monster hunting and immersive dark fantasy world, has turned The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt into a definitive RPG that is still popular a decade after its release. The main story of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt features 3 distinct endings. However, there are over 30 different endings related to various characters and their storylines. Depending on how quests are completed, beloved characters can turn into enemies, and some may even die. In the futuristic world of Night City, the main story of V allows for multiple endings in Cyberpunk 2077, with each one having its own good and bad aspects. Since the release of the Phantom Liberty expansion, even more endings are available featuring a new story, areas, quests, vehicles, and more, thus creating the RPG that was initially promised. Alongside the endings, Cyberpunk 2077 features many quests that have different outcomes depending on the choices made, allowing players to rise in the criminal underworld as benevolently or malevolently as they wish. Despite its original launch being buggy and unfinished, Cyberpunk 2077 saw a shocking turnaround thanks to its dedicated developers and fans. On the one hand, the real ending to Batman Arkham Knight is much longer and far more satisfying than the standard ending. On the other hand, it requires completing everything in Gotham City 100%, including every single Riddler trophy and challenge, which gamers have openly disdained, as it can be a tedious process. However, the true ending shows the aftermath of the Nightfall Protocol, setting up what comes next in the Arkhamverse timeline. That shows how much effort was put into making Batman Arkham Knight the most detailed Batman experience a gamer could experience. Whether it's roaming the city, doing quests, or following the epic story, the developers at Rocksteady have so many hidden secrets and Easter eggs throughout the game. As an RPG, Dragon's Dogma 2 presents an even bigger world than before, with rich lore and engaging combat to keep players enthralled throughout their dark fantasy adventure. While most choices featured throughout the game are inconsequential, the ending drastically changes depending on how the player wishes to handle it. One ending will result in a happy ending with the Arisen defeating the dragon, which leads to the Arisen being crowned the Sovereign of Vermin. There are also two bad endings and a true good ending, which can only be achieved through wielding the empowered Godsbane blade and slaying the dragon in mid-flight by piercing its heart. Freedom plays a big part in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, with players being able to experience the world of Hyrule in any way they wish after the initial prologue. The shrines, challenges, and even the epic story can all be tackled in whatever way the player wishes, which helps solidify Breath of the Wild as a modern classic. One feature some fans might not know is that there are two endings to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There is the standard ending that comes from defeating Calamity Ganon, while there is what is considered the true ending after completing the Captured Memories quest, unlocking a new cutscene that plays after the credits stop rolling. Obsidian Entertainment has made a legacy of RPGs with drastically different endings, and The Outer Worlds is no different. Not only do players' choices matter in quests throughout the intergalactic video game as they explore different alien planets, but there are three endings to the main story: a good one, a bad one, and a true ending. The endings of The Outer Worlds reflect the game's central themes, particularly those related to corporate greed and the consequences of capitalism. The vibrant universe, paired with quirky humor and an engaging RPG adventure, has established the foundation for what has become a new franchise.